My name is Lalala the City, and today we will be discussing the Kingdom of Prussia, or Prussia as a whole, known in German as the Königreich Preußen. Prussia, in history, was known as a powerful state, only second behind the Holy Roman Empire. Ruled by the Hohenzollerns, it contended with powers such as France, Britain, Denmark, and Poland. From a backwater state in the Holy Roman Empire to being one of the most militaristic countries in Europe at the time, to forming the German Empire and inspiring another militaristic sense in the Germans in the 1940s, today we'll be discussing the history of Prussia. Without further ado, let's get into it. Prussia didn't begin as the Prussia we know in history. Prussia, before the 12th century, was inhabited by the Old Prussians, who were part of the ethnic group of the Baltic people. However, crusades were the norm at the time, so the Germans thought, hey, let's launch a crusade, and so they did, against the Old Prussians, which ended in a Catholic victory. The Teutonic Order, a holy order based in Germany, would rule Prussia and other Baltic states, which would be known as monastic Prussia, and would last until 1561. During this time, it was a fiefdom of the Kingdom of Poland, though they often find themselves frequently at odds with the Polish, even going to war with them at times. And, side note, Prussia would be the downfall of Poland. In the 1500s, an angry monk posted his 95 Theses, and the Protestant Reformation was in full swing. It was clear that the Teutonic Order, which had lost a lot of its former land, being subjected to only Prussia, would not survive. The Grand Master of the Knights at the time, Albert, from the House of Hohenzollern, came to the throne. The Hohenzollerns controlled land in Brandenburg and Swabia, and were a major German family. Influenced by the teachings of Martin Luther and seeing the inevitable end of the order, Albert was signed from his position as Grand Master in 1521, and was granted the title Duke of Prussia, Herzog der Preußen, thus making Prussia a secular state, and a Protestant one amongst many. Though they were still a Protestant country, they were still a fiefdom of Poland, which was a Catholic country. They were one step closer to independence, though, and the eventual rise to power would be soon, as the Hohenzollerns dominated the scene. After the reign of Albert I, his son Albert Frederick succeeded him. Despite his long tenure as Duke, he had no children, and the original Protestant branch of the Hohenzollerns died out. His son-in-law, who was a distant relative of the Duke, succeeded him. This resulted in the formation of Brandenburg Prussia, in which two of these states were joined in personal union by the Dukes of Prussia and the Electors of Brandenburg, respectively. Both of these were considered backwaters, but they would become economic and military powerhouses. During the 30 Years' War, Prussia and Brandenburg, however, was ruled by ineffective governance, and their power was severely diminished. However, under the governance of Frederick William, who was known as the Great Elector, succeeded his ineffective father, reformed Prussia, and won many great battles. His achievements allowed for Prussia to be elevated to new heights, kingdom heights, and his son, Frederick, would ask the Holy Roman Empire to proclaim him König von Preußen, King of Prussia. And so he did in 1701. Recognized as kings by the emperor in the rest of Europe, the Hohenzollerns were somewhat still vassals to the Polish at this point. At the start of the war beginnings, they were titled King in Prussia, not willing to offending the Holy Roman Empire and the Polish king. Frederick William I was known for his reformation of the Prussian state and military, doubling its size and also establishing overseas colonies, though these would not last long. After his reign of 27 years, he was followed by his son, Frederick II. Frederick II is often considered to be the greatest Prussian king and one of the greatest German monarchs. Just to show a glimpse of how successful his reign was, the title of the Prussian monarch changed from King in Prussia to King of Prussia, signifying that he was king in all of his domains. During Frederick II's reign, it can be considered a golden age for Prussia. Under his rule, Prussia greatly expanded its territory. The army was reorganized, countless artists and composers were funded and invited to the Prussian court. They annexed the West Silesia from the powerful Austrian Habsburgs, who were emperors of the Holy Roman Empire. And during this time, and even today, Frederick is held as one of the most able and skilled military commanders of his time. He promoted religious freedom and patronized the works of the Enlightenment. Poland was partitioned during his reign, which benefited him as he annexed more territory, and his powerful position greatly grew as the sovereignty of the Holy Roman Empire at the time was diminished, being a patchwork of states and more of a confederation than anything. Prussia was transformed into a great power to be reckoned with. Frederick made sure of this. It is also highly speculated, it's probably true, with all the controversy surrounding him, that Frederick was a homosexual, hence why he didn't pay much mind to his wife and didn't bear any children. Prussia's future is all thanks to Frederick I, who will be known in later history as Frederick the Great and will be revered as one of the greatest German monarchs to ever live. After Frederick the Great's death, it was followed by his nephew, Frederick William II. Not much happened in his reign. His reign was a period of patronage and of culture, like his uncle. However, he was an absolute monarch who was devoted to the state and his work. He finished his predecessor's law codes, and his reign was also known for his censorship, both religiously and politically. He was followed by his son Frederick William III. The French Revolution had occurred during Frederick William's second reign, and this would have major consequences for the Prussians and Europe as a whole. The Napoleonic Wars had a huge effect on Prussia and Europe as a whole. Then to say Napoleon I changed the way the government would work and the way society developed and changed after his rule is quite the understatement. The Holy Roman Empire dissolved, and the Prussians were no longer electors of Brandenburg from that point on. On top of that, Prussia's churches were reformed during Frederick III's reign. After his reign, his son Frederick IV succeeded him. The situation in Europe drastically changed, and the world was ever changing. Years after Napoleon's defeat in 1815, his descendant, Napoleon III, established the Second French Empire. Little did he know the tables would be turned, as a descendant of Frederick III would bring the downfall of the French Empire. William I, who was Frederick William's fourth brother, wouldn't be expected to succeed the Prussian throne, as it was figured that William IV would have children. However, he was a well-known figure in the Prussian army, as he had fought with distinction during the War of the Sixth Coalition against Napoleon. He was even more popular after the victories in both the Second Schleswig War against Denmark and the Austro-Prussian War, against Austria, helping Germany become a superpower. I should say Prussia, but I think we all know where this is going. German unification was almost achieved after Napoleonic Wars with the German Confederation, an alliance of German states, including Austria, though after the war with Austria, it was called the North German Confederation, excluding the Habsburgs and kicking the Austrians out. However, this was little more than just pretense. Soon after the Prussians won against the French in the Franco-Prussian War, the Hohenzollerns finally got a taste of imperial dignity, and they were known as the Emperors of Germany, the German Emperor, unified under one Germany. And with that, I conclude our history of Prussia. Sure, you can consider that Prussia and the German Empire could be considered as one, but I'd like to separate the German Empire into its own history, though its history will be short-lived. The German Empire will not last long, as it was abolished in 1918 following the end of World War I, though Prussia as a whole still survived well into Nazi Germany, though this was later abolished, as it was known that Prussia gave a sense of nationality and militarism to Germany. And with that, I can conclude our topic for today. As you see, this is a collage of all the German and Prussian flags and coat of arms. And with that, I will see you all in the next video. Gott mit uns, everyone.